All right, I would like to now call to order the November 24th, 2020 regular school board meeting of the Columbia Heights Public School Board. If you would and you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will begin with a roll call. Molly, please.
Yep, Severson,
Here.
Mueller,
Here.
a Samurai,
Here.
Larkin,
Here.
Palmer,
Here.
Lewis, I, Superintendent Stenvik.
Here.
All right. Due to the current federal and state emergency declarations, the Minnesota Directive to Residents to Stay at Home and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, this meeting of the Columbia Heights Public School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Board members are reminded to mute their microphone or phone when they're speaking. School board members wishing to speak should raise their hand and then wait to be recognized by the chair, or unmute, as we've seen most recently in meetings. The chair will determine the order in which board members wishing to speak will be recognized. Then, when recognized, board members should unmute the microphone or phone, speak, and then mute their device. All votes will be conducted by roll call. Each school board member should wait until their name is called before voting. This meeting is being recorded, and access to the recording will be made available on school district's website as soon as reasonably possible. All right. Having said that, we will move on to the mission statement, which is creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. All belong, all succeed, and our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. We will move on to the agenda approval, adjustments, announcements, and correspondence. Let's begin looking for a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
John.
Second.
Second from Lorian. Any discussion there? All right, roll call vote, please.
Severson,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
a Samurai,
Aye.
Larkin,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Lewis, I.
All right, motion carries. We'll move on to the announcements. November 26th and 27th, Thursday and Friday, there are no school. December 8th, Tuesday at 5:30, there's a school board work session in the community room, but likely simply by electronic means for board members. December 15th, Tuesday at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular school board meeting in the community room, also by electronic means. January 23rd through January 1st, there is no school. And then once again on January 5th, Tuesday, there will be a school board organizational meeting. And Dawn, I believe that's at 5:30. Is that when we put that in our schedule? There's no time on my announcements.
Correct. Yes, that
5:30. All right. Thank you, Don. And then January 2nd, Tuesday at 7 p.m., there'll be a regular school board meeting in the community rooms and via electronic means. Superintendent Stenvik, do we have any correspondence tonight?
Madam Chair, members, there's no correspondence today.
All right, great. We'll keep moving on to communication with the board. And this is the time when any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. The board will listen to the brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that the administration follow up. The board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time. Superintendent Stenvik, do we have any visitors tonight?
There is no one in this room, so I think I can take my mask off, right?
Yeah, I think you can then, yeah. All right, great. We hope to hear from you. If you're watching via Zoom, you're welcome to email our board, individual board members, or Superintendent Stenvik with any concerns you might have. I know it's difficult to get out during a pandemic, but we are welcome to hearing from you all. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which contains the personnel report from the 24th of November. I have a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Lorian, can I get a second?
Second,
Second from Molly. Great. Discussion on that. All right, Molly, roll call, please.
Severson,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
a Samurai,
Aye.
Larkin,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Lewis, I.
All right, motion carries. Great, thank you. We'll move on to acknowledgement of contributions. It's always a fun one for me. I'll read this and then I'll ask for a motion to move it forward. Oh man, I gotta make it a lot bigger for my aging eyes. Hold on. Oh man. All right. Oh, there we go. Wow. Oh wow. Sorry, my computer is out of control, y'all. All right. Whereas Minnesota Statute 123B.02 permits school boards to receive for the benefit of the district, request donations or gifts of any proper purpose and apply the same to the proposed purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of pupils thereof. Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Columbia Heights Public Schools, Independent School District Number 13, that the school board accepts with appreciation the contributions detailed in the background in the amount of $3,770. The following donations were made to the Columbia Heights High School Scholarship Fund. The Columbia Heights Police Association, $2,000. Building System Solutions, $1,000. And Philip Lundin, $100. Value in kind, a donation of hats and mittens was made to Valley View Elementary School by St. Philip's Lutheran Church for student needs, estimated value $470. Donation of books was made to North Park Elementary by Kim and John Trombley for the library. That's fun to say. Estimated value of $200 for a total fiscal year of 2020, 2021 monetary contributions to date of $61,932.01. Can I get a motion to move that forward, please?
So moved.
John,
Yep.
can I get a second?
Second.
From Laura, thank you. Discussion.
I'll comment just thanking our community partners again, both the businesses and our faith-based organizations and community members, especially during times where money might be tight just across the board. To have continued donations into the school is very much appreciated.
Agreed. Others?
Also, I wanted to say very much appreciated, especially during this difficult time when it feels like things are way different than usual. And it's easy for people to not see where their contributions are making a difference. So much appreciated.
That's a really good point. Thank you for continued trust with your gifts for us. All right, this is a resolution, but it's also on video, so it's all roll call votes at this time. So Molly, would you please?
Yep. Severson,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Samurai,
Aye.
Larkin,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Lewis, I.
All right, motion carries. We'll move on to discussion reports, information items. We'll go around and we'll do reports from members of the board. Board members will report on board activities since the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. Let's start with Molly.
Thank you. I attended the work session last week, as well as the special called session right before this meeting. Also had a chance to watch the final volleyball and football games of the year. I do want to take a second to just acknowledge and thank our coaches and advisors of any of the fall programs. The risk that they put themselves at and the commitment that they showed during this really challenging time to let our students, participate in those activities that they love, and provide that outlet for a lot of them for mental health reasons and whatnot. Just is appreciated, regardless of the records or anything like that. I know sometimes they hear a lot of criticism, but just know that you are appreciated by many of us for what you do for our kids. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll move on to Laura.
Well, I also attended the work study session last week and the special call meeting just prior to this. In addition to that, I also attended an executive committee with 916 with the purpose of discussing a search firm for for hiring a superintendent for 9/16. So some really healthy discussion came out of that, and we're going to be interviewing the potential candidates coming up next in December, so we can get that ball rolling.
All right. Thanks,
That's it.
Laura. All right. Awesome. Lorian.
Yeah, I attended the work session last week as well as the chair meeting today and the special called meeting today. Also have had some conversations with parents and was able to reach out to Superintendent Stenbeck as well.
Great. Thank you. Hala.
I attended the work session last week and the special called meeting right before this.
All right. Thank you. John.
Ditto on the work session and the special call meeting prior to this one. Had a couple conversations with community members, had an opportunity to speak with both Chair Severson and Superintendent Stenbeck, and I appreciate your time for that. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I was mine are pretty similar. I was able to attend chair meetings before this meeting tonight and the work session, our last work session, which I then also attended. Was able to attend the special called meeting we just had at 6 p.m. tonight, and then was able to talk with John to get a little mentoring on the special called meeting, which was great. Thank you, John, for your help and feedback on that. It's a new process for me, and so he's been willing to mentor me in that, and would have had conversations ongoing with Superintendent Stenbeck. Which then leads us to Superintendent Stenbeck. Could we hear your report, please, if you have one, I guess?
Madam Chair, members, last week I met with the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, and a representative from the Minnesota Department of Education Indian Education Program joined our meeting. So we had a very good discussion and are on track with meeting our program goals. So it was a robust discussion. I continue to meet weekly with the AMSD superintendents to collaborate on COVID-19 related topics. And I also there's also a weekly Commissioner of Education phone call that provides us with important updates each week. I also met with the District 916 superintendents with the District 916 legal counsel to discuss the future steps for the St. Francis district, which is exiting the consortium. So we needed to begin the conversation around what the legal and financial implications are for the entire consortium. So more information will come to the school board on that topic when it becomes available. And I was able to connect with Chair Severson, Member Larkin, and Member Mueller. And I'm always available to meet with individual board members. Thank you.
All right, we will keep going. Thanks for that. We will have Director Sundstrom join us with Kelly Smith from Baker Tilly to talk to us about aid anticipation.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Severson, school board members, Superintendent Stenbeck. I'm here tonight with Kelly Smith. He's from Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. So he's our municipal financial advisor on all things bond and certificate borrowings. So he's here tonight to give some information on our short-term borrowing for cash flow purposes. So he's going to present a PowerPoint, and then you'll have time to ask questions. So Kelly, I think he's on here, so.
Yes, I am. Thanks, Denise. Can you hear me okay, everyone? Okay, very good. Thank you. Chair Severson, Superintendent Stenbeck, and members of the board, glad to be with you tonight. Denise had reached out to discuss cash flow borrowing needs that the district may have as future cash flow projections have shown some deficits coming up in the spring and summer of this coming year. And so I have a brief presentation to share just to talk a little bit about what cash flow borrowing is all about. And I'll try to share my screen here if you'd hang on one second. Can everyone see that? Okay. All right. So cash flow borrowing. So why do school districts sometimes run short of cash? There are a variety of reasons. Um, Schedule of revenues paid to district changes. Uh, the state aid that the district receives is metered out throughout the school year. You don't receive all your state aid on July 1st, the beginning of a new fiscal year for the district. It's metered out. You don't get much during the summer. You get larger payments in August, September, and October. Then you don't see much state aid as you're getting tax collections in November and December. So it fluctuates throughout the year. And along with the state aid, you also are getting that county money. So the distribution schedule of that can also affect cash flow for districts. The schedule of expenses paid by the district may change at times. Salary and benefits may be higher than anticipated, or there may be a um, compensation for a settled contract. Um, and this year, a driver of a lot of districts' concerns with cash flow is unknown expenses, large expenses due to some unknown events such as COVID-19 expenses this year. And then some districts are positioned with a fairly low cash balance or fund balance reserve. And if there's any slight hiccup in a normal schedule, that can present some cash flow problems. This year we have a potential of another factor, major factor affecting cash flow, and I'd like to just give a brief example of that, and that's a state aid shift. Um, I don't know how many of you were on the board the last time the state aid was shifted during the Pawlenty administration. The state had a significant deficit and they use a state aid shift. And I want to just talk about this example here to try to bring home how it will impact schools. So in this example of school district A has total revenue of $12.5 million. And of that, they get federal fees and miscellaneous for 500,000, local property taxes, 2 million, and state aid of $10 million. And I chose that just because it's nice round numbers for me to do math in my head as we move forward. In a typical year, the district is going to receive 90% of that $10 million in the current year. So you're getting that in the current year, and you receive 10% from the previous year. Once student enrollment numbers are confirmed at MDE in the fall, then districts receive that remaining 10%. So combined, that 10% from last year plus the 90% for this year's state aid gives you that total $10 million in annual revenue. Where we run into a problem if the legislature takes a look at trying to balance their budget by holding back some of that state aid from school districts. And in the past, a typical number was instead of 90-10, the legislature changed this to 70-30. So our legislature is going to be meeting this spring. If they make a change such as this, that means going into next fiscal year, you're going to receive 10% of what you to complete the current year finances, plus 70% for the next year's state aid, for a total of 80%. So you're going to actually be short cash of $2 million if that state shift occurs. Now, the second year moving forward, you're then going to get 30% catch-up payment plus the 70%. So you're going to be back to the 10 million, but you're always going to be short that $2 million in cash flow purposes due to the way school districts do their accounting. You are going to show it on your audit. It looks like you got the revenue. It's going to be a state aid receivable, but you aren't going to have the cash in hand to pay bills, and you won't recover that cash until the state returns that aid split to 90-10. And I think the next slide shows a history going back to 99, 2000, you'll see 90, 10, and then we started to shift 83% down to 80. Then it got back to 90 for just a couple years. And then here's the 70% that we talked about. And now for the last 6+ years, we've been at 90, 10. Cash flow has not really been a significant issue for districts. But I do need to say that the state has used this tool in the past. I think in talking to school district superintendents and school lobbyists, certainly they're expecting that some kind of state aid shift is going to be done. The state is projected a pretty significant budget deficit. When the state made the switch to 70-30 back in 2011, I believe the number was that saved the state $1.8 billion. So it's going to take about close to 40% of the projected deficit just by doing this state aid. So while we don't like that as school districts, we've got to make some accommodations. It's probably the lesser of two evils. The other option the state has is to cut general ed funding to school districts, which would be certainly even more difficult situation to deal with. So when you're looking at cash flow borrowing, obviously the best thing to do is not be in a position, but sometimes you have no control over some of the things that are happening to your district. Know your cash flow borrowing options, compare the costs, understand how your credit rating and affects your borrowing and how to enhance it over time, and then use an advisor as you move forward trying to make these decisions. So there are some options that are available, and frankly, the first one and the last one are the two that most districts use. I'm just going to quickly go through them to show you the various options. The first is a line of credit, where literally the district would approach your local bank, your official bank that you do your business with, to open a line of credit. Most banks are willing to do that. However, there are some limits to it. You can only borrow for 45 days. So if you have an extended period of cash flow borrowing, you've got issues with a line of credit. Also, that has higher interest costs than other forms of borrowing. So this is a line of credit is used if a district knows they might have a month period of time where they have a cash flow shortfall. In cash flow projections we've looked at, there have been several different months where there are projected cash flow deficits and other months where you're close. And again, any slight change in payment of expenditures or revenue coming in could result in deficit in those months as well. So line of credit is one option. The next two are fairly similar. District can actually request from the county that you get an advanced settlement on tax payments. Now, the key piece on this one is the county doesn't have to honor the request. You can ask. And right now, counties probably aren't in position to do that because they have had some difficulty collecting all taxes due to certainly people being out of work, and counties have made accommodations for that. So you can make a request. The other issue is, the majority of your money comes from state aid. So even if you could get some in advance, it may not be enough to take care of your cash flow concerns. You can do the same thing with your state aid. You can appeal to the commissioner to revise the state aid payment. Again, this one is a little bit problematic in that you don't know how much the state would agree to change that payment schedule by, and if that is going to be enough to mitigate the cash flow deficits throughout the school year for you. They do minimize short-term borrowing, but they often don't eliminate a need for cash flow borrowing. And again, in this instance, the Department of Ed is not required to comply. It is an option out there. In my 5 years working this and 24 years as superintendent, I only knew of districts that were in extreme financial difficulty. They were in statutory operating debt that ever received permission from the Department of Ed to provide this emergency state aid adjustment. And you are not close to that situation. So the last option is tax and aid anticipation certificates. These are, you borrow against expected property taxes or state aids that the district is receiving. So they're either called tax anticipation certificates or aid anticipation certificates. Most districts nowadays utilize aid anticipation certificates because the majority of your revenue is coming from state aid. And so that does provide you more flexibility in terms of the level of borrowing that you can do under the aid anticipation program. Both of these qualify for the Minnesota Credit Enhancement Program, and that's a key thing. That means the state of Minnesota's credit rating is backing up this borrowing, and it means you're going to receive lower interest rates. You have a solid credit rating. I believe it's A2 right now. The state's is AA2, so you'd be seeing the benefit of that even better credit rating through the credit enhancement program. There are some limits on how much you can borrow under both of these programs. You can borrow 75% of taxes or aids to be received, and we'll talk about that. You have to actually file a request with the Department of Education regarding your state aids. And then from the federal requirements, you can only borrow 5%, or excuse me, it's the lesser of the state or federal maximums here. So on the federal, you can only borrow 5% of the previous year's cash expenditures plus the greatest projected monthly cash flow deficit. So we've gone through this, and you would qualify to borrow $1 million, I think, that has been requested or suggested. So what is the process? Determine the amount of money to borrow. Ms. Sundstrom has mentioned $1 million. We've looked at a cash flow schedule. You qualify for borrowing that amount of money. Aid anticipation certificates appear to be the best option, looking at the district's situation and timing. Then we will be working with the district to develop an offering document called an official statement if needed. The board will approve a resolution that sets some parameters on the interest rate, the amount of borrowing, and the terms. There are documents certainly to be completed with borrowing, and the funds are received. The process takes approximately 2 months. So the calendar right now we're looking at would be at your December board meeting. You'd pass a resolution requesting the aid anticipation certificates, and those would be sold the next month, and you would have the funds available in February. There is the application I mentioned to the application and cash flow projection are really one and the same thing. A letter needs to be submitted to MDE to verify the state aid, and then there is that board resolution that needs to be acted on. There are costs to borrowing. As in any time you are borrowing, there are legal costs, financial advisor, trustee or paying agent fees. In order to access the credit enhancement program, the district must have a trustee or paying agent, and you have used bond trust services for your bonded debt that is out there, and we would use the same trustee for that. The underwriter who sells these certificates to other investors has a fee, and then there are some miscellaneous transaction fees. Sometimes we need to request information from the county. So with a $1 million issue, the cost of issuance that would include that bond counsel fee, underwriter discount, municipal advisor fee, and rating fee if any is needed. The cost of issuance is estimated to be $21,250. And there is interest expense for this $1 million, which would be from approximately February 1st to the middle of September, and I will talk about that in a second, is estimated to be about $10,000. So your combined cost of doing all-in costs would be just over $31,000. And I mentioned the September date. There is a statewide borrowing pool that districts have utilized through the years. It is a combined effort of any district that feels they need cash flow borrowing can participate in. This past year, that cash flow borrowing pool was $35 million statewide, and it's gone as high as over 200 million when the state did aid shifts the last time. And that program starts in September and then regenerates each year. So you can only do aid anticipation certificates for 13-month period of time. So you do have to re-up them if your cash flow situation has not resolved itself within that first year's time. So several options available to districts to address cash flow in your particular circumstances. It appears that a standalone cash flow borrowing, the aid anticipation is your best option, and that is certainly what we would recommend. And then certainly consider your district needs as you determine your course of action and the amount that you'd wish to borrow. So with that, I would stop my share and answer any questions you might have, or I'd have Ms. Sundstrom fill in any details that I may have neglected to include in that presentation.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. Board members, what questions do you have on this topic? Lorian.
You knew that was coming, right?
Yeah, I have some too. I'll just see if you hit them first.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I appreciate you talking about the statewide borrowing pool. That was actually something that I had looked into when I saw that this was on our agenda. So I appreciate the information on that. You had said that the state aid shift or the aid split, that's not anything that we're aware of happening at this point, but it's potential that could happen, correct?
Correct.
And then I guess this may be more of a question for Denise, but kind of where are we at, or what's bringing us to this, to having this conversation or this decision? Obviously, I know that we've got some COVID-19 related expenses and we've had some funding for some of that as well, but can you just give more detail on kind of how we got here?
Yep. Lorraine, we have, yes, we've had unexpected costs, due to COVID, which the board is aware of. So we have to spend that money first before we request reimbursement from MDE. So, I mean, it's great. The revenue that we're getting is good, but it is causing some cash flow issues. So, we're waiting right now for the second draw on that CRF funds that I put in. So that's, 300,000. So, I mean, it's just behind on that. And also you're going to be seeing the audit, on December 8th, our special board meeting. And we had planned to spend down those reserves. There was reserves in LTFM, there were reserves in operating capital, and that was a budgeted spend down. And our fund balance percentage is still good. It's still within the fund balance 6 to 12%. You'll see that when we have the audit come. But it's just due to those reserves coming down also that we're having some issues. So we've run this cash flow a few times, and I think we can get by with $1 million. I've had Brian look at it. Paula has been working with PMA, who runs the cash flow for us. And we think this is a good solution to get through till September. And if these aid shifts and tax shifts happen, we can jump into the the pool that Kelly was discussing. But at the time in September when that came out, we just didn't think we had an issue then.
So I guess a follow up to that then. So what you'd be looking at is $1 million, right? Is kind of, and that it's not a necessarily a spending issue or that our budget is showing this huge shortfall. It's really the timing of the expenses and the reimbursements and the receipt of state aid. So it's not a fiscal irresponsibility necessarily or overspending, what we haven't budgeted. It's a timing of when those expenses are hitting versus when the revenues are coming in.
Exactly.
And then, so then a follow-up question, if it's just, if it's just $1 million, we have the fund balance. So does it make sense to have that carry over at all so that we're not spending $31,000 to borrow money that we kind of already have in the fund balance?
We've taken that into account in the cash flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I,
We
I
need
would,
this additional $1 million to be able to cash flow.
Yep.
Okay.
I would
Kelly?
just jump in if I could there on fund balance and cash flow is different. Your fund balance shows everything that you're due. So a lot of times you're not getting special ed aid until later, but it shows up in your audited fund balance that you have that money, but you may not have it for cash flow purposes, if that's clear.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. You have fund balance, but it's a cash flow situation, not a fund balance situation that's causing this.
Right. So yeah, and I think that's important to note for the folks that may be watching us at home as well.
Absolutely.
That
Yep.
it's not like a personal account where I can pull the money out of my savings account to cover my bills for the month. That it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Correct.
Other questions? Because those were my questions. Like, why now? My questions, which you answered. Thank you, Kelly and Denise. Why now and why 1 million? So those were going to be my questions. So, other board members have questions?
I have a comment.
Thank you, Laura.
I actually was on the board when we had the 70-30, and I believe we borrowed 2.1 million to do cash flow, and it was basically the same situation. We needed the cash today, and we were getting it next month, and so it was a matter of just being able to have the funds on hand for being able to meet day-to-day expenses that we were promised, we just hadn't received yet. Everybody likes to make sure that their bills are paid on time. So I'm just wondering, because we did borrow so much more it's part of the reason we always kept our fund balance a little bit higher, was hopefully to be able to have more cash on hand. But it doesn't always work that way when you have all these separate pots of money that need to be spent in certain ways and on certain things. So it doesn't help maybe for being able to produce, purchase disinfecting wipes, but is $1 million going to be enough if we see this pandemic has really hit the state budget really hard as well. Is it going to be enough if they do something more drastic than, maybe we're looking at a 70-30 or a 60-40?
Well, I'll jump in here too. I think the plan here is that this $1 million would get you to September, when that potential aid shift would really be starting to impact districts. So I would, this is intended to get you through, February to September. By the time you'd have to make a next decision on a next borrowing amount, you will know what the impact of any state legislation is and how it's going to impact your district. But you're right, Laura, looking back, when it was 70-30, you had to borrow more. And if they do that again, you will be borrowing more in all likelihood in September than you are with this $1 million now.
Yeah, but our credit rating's pretty good even as a district, so we're not going to be as impacted as some fiscally well, challenged districts. I think maybe that's the best way of
Right,
putting
you're
it.
still in good, sound financial condition, good credit rating, fund balance is good. Again, it's the cash flow and situations that are impacting that has brought you to this discussion tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. More questions. I'm trying to look for unmutes, but I don't see a lot. Okay, well, thank you. So this will be back at our, which meeting? December 8th or December 15th?
December 15th, it'll be
December 15th.
it will be an action item. It will be the resolution to call for the sale of the 8
Okay.
anticipation certificates. So I don't
Yep.
know if Kelly will be there if you need him to, but you'll have to read that resolution, Maddie.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for joining us tonight, Kelly. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Take care,
And
everyone.
Denise, of course. All right, we will move on to the police liaison contract with Executive Director Nyambwe, Director Hennekins. Oh, Bondo, we can't hear you. You have to unmute. Sorry.
All right, now I'm
All
on
right,
mute.
give us a new start.
Good evening, Chair Severson, members of the board, and Superintendent Stanvik. I am here tonight with Director Anakin to present the SRO School Resource Officer Focus Group Report, as well as an expanded survey that we conducted for students in grade 7 through 12. And then we'll finish with a short presentation about the contract. Our overview for tonight is 3 things that we'll be talking about. Our online survey was conducted last week on Thursday and Friday, and we have great results that we are looking forward to presenting tonight. I'm going to start with the first focus group that was conducted in late October, early November. The method that was used was phone calls, which were attempted at 3 separate times. Then we also used Zoom to be able to converse with some of the students. And when we had to push for the last momentum, we used email and we were able to get some responses. At the onset, we were targeting 40 students from our district, both from CA, Columbia Academy, and Columbia Heights High School. But in the end, we ended up with 14 students and 5 teachers, so a total of 19 participants for the focus group. Our goal was to get as many voices as we could, but we're able to end up with 19. The demographic that we targeted were a good sample representative of all the students in our district. And so based on the small sample size that we're able to interview, we had 6 who were African Americans, 1 Asian American, 1 Hispanic American, and 6 Caucasian. And then there was a group of teachers who also responded, and they're predominantly Caucasian. So one of the questions that was asked was, how do you feel about having school resource officers in our school? And based on the 19 respondents, 74% felt good and 26% not good. When the same question is broken down by race, Uh, 8 students of color responded positively compared to 2 white students. And then there was 1 concern on the student of color and 4 concerns from our white students. When we looked at the comments about how do you feel about having school resource officers in our school, as you can see from the comments here, there were a lot of positive comments, and then there were some comments that were concerning. On the positive comments, they have been a positive part of our community. Good, makes me feel safe and comfortable. And the majority of the responses from the small focus group had to do with security and positive interactions that the students had. With respect to the negative comments, couple that's summarized here is it is not necessary to have them, referring to the SRO. There is no need to have them to be in schools. And these are student voices. Another question that was asked was, should the Columbia Heights Public School continue to have school resource officers in our schools? There is yes, 9 strong yes, 1 person abstained, 4 students said no, and then there were 5 conditional yeses. And given the event of that happened in May when George Floyd was murdered, it is expected that some people are rethinking the role of police, and that's where those 5 conditional yeses came from. But they were yes. So in total, we had 9 plus 5, which is 13 yeses compared to 4 no's and 1 abstention. So when you break this question further into by race, there are 7 students of colors compared to 2 white students who said yes, we should continue to have school resource officers in our school. And then there is 1 student of color with a condition compared to 2 white students with conditions. And then 1 student of color said no, and then 2 white students said no. Now, it was important for us to know why, do the student want SROs in school? And the safety factor came up heavily. And it says because school will be safer. If students want to talk to someone, they can go to him. Him referring to one of the SROs that they know and they have a relationship with. Another comment said, continue making sure that people are safe and are treated fairly, and students not carrying weapon. And so we continue to see safety, one of the chief concerns from the students here. And then the last comment says they protect us if a shooting or anything else life-threatening happens. So another question of high interest to the focus group was, what is the name of the school resource officer? Out of the 19 people who responded, 15 people knew the name of our 2 school resource officers, Officer JP and Officer Farah, and 4 of the participants did not know the names of our school resource officers. Another question that was asked was, have you ever had an encounter with the SRO? Encounter meaning a conversation, not negative or positive, but just have you ever talked to him? And so we had 78% of the 19 participants said yes, and 21% said no. When we break this data by race, we were able to see that 6 of our students of colors had an encounter with the SRO compared to 5 white students, and 3 students of colors said they did not have an encounter compared to 1 white student. We also dug deeper to find out what were the reasons for meeting with the SRO, and you can see that all of the responses are showing the level of relationship that the SRO have with our students, because it happened either in a event that was a recreational type event, or sometimes it's because the SRO were doing their job by doing an investigation, wanting to resolve an issue, whether it was a stolen AirPad or a casual conversation that the students were having with the SRO. And so, again, it seems like based on the small sample size of 19, the encounters with the SRO in most cases were positive. And one final question that was also important for the focus group was, are you afraid of the police? Not just the SRO, but we're taking everything into context given what had transpired in May. And in red, we have 78%, which say no, and that's a good thing, even though it's red. And the rest of it is broken in pretty small groups where there is one person who say, in the blue there, that yeah, they are afraid of the police, and then there's another person who says, I'm not afraid of the police, of what they will do to me, but I'm definitely afraid of how they treat people of color. And so this first portion is a conclusion of that focus group that was conducted with 19 students. But per the request of the board, wanted to see a bigger sample size. Last week, we proceeded with a survey of students in grades 7 through 12 at the middle school and the high school. And so the next set of data that I'm going to share with you is a response from 616 students who participated in an online survey. So here's a breakdown of all our participants by grade level, 7 through 12. We are very pleased with the turnout of these 616 responses that our students were able to provide to us. And so one of the questions that was asked is, do you trust Columbia Academy Officer Farah to help keep you safe? And you can see that 9.9% of the students at CA said no, but 90.1% said yes. When the same question was asked, do you trust Columbia Heights High School Officer JP to help keep you safe? 12% of our high school students said no, and 87.5% of them said yes. This is very positive and encouraging to know that the students who took this survey feel like the two school resource officers that we have in our schools are trusted to keep us safe. Another question that was asked is, should the Columbia Heights Public School continue to have school resource officers in its schools? You can see that 4.9% of the respondents said no, but we have 53.6% who said yes, and then 41.6% who were unsure. That unsure is certainly one number that we paid attention to, given the circumstances that transpired in May and the current situation that we're in the pandemic. We also took this data and broke it down by schools, and you can see when that same question is asked, in the middle school, we have 58% who say yes, and then we have at the high school 48% who say yes, and then the unsure at the middle school is 37% compared to 45% at the high school. But that no, it still remains very small. And so we look at this number and continue to reflect and say that, it is positive in many cases. And yet you still have some students who are unsure. And given the age group that we interviewed, we wonder what unsure may mean for them. So another question that we asked, and that was broken by race, which is a component that the board wanted to see, is that should the Columbia Heights Public School continue to have school resource officers in our school? You can see our Black student responded. 47% say yes, 46% unsure, and no still remain a smaller fraction. And our Hispanic students' responses are 56% yes and 40% unsure, and very small 3.4% say no. And our white student responses also, the yeses are 4.5%, 33% unsure, and the no for our white student goes a little bit high to about 12.5%. And the last group is a multi-race student. Our yeses is 55%, unsure 41%, and the no is just small. You know, what's important as we do this survey is also paying attention to the narrative, the written responses. And here I have some examples of comments from students who responded and said no. And we're still on the question, should the Columbia Heights Public School continue to have school resource officers in its school? One 9th grade student who identify as Black says, I've read a couple articles that are kind of convincing as to why we shouldn't have them. And I don't really trust law enforcement. Another comment is from a 10th grade student who also identifies as Black. He says, there is no reason for the Columbia Heights Public Schools to have resource officers. All they do is come in 10th grade health classes to tell students not to do drugs and contract other police for student cases or crime. The dean could easily call the police station if needed, and oftentimes by 10th grade, an officer telling a student not to do drug is not going to be the thing that deters them. These are just two comments. You received a copy of this, and I'm just gonna go and read the final response from a white student who's a 12th grader and identifies as white. He says, well, while I do think that SRO provides some benefit, I think that those benefits are situational. An SRO is just a police officer stationed in the school, and the benefit provided is de-escalating certain situations that are more violent in nature, or if an investigation needs to be made. So these are responses of students who said no. I also do want to share some examples from students who responded yes to the same question. And I note here that there is a trend among our Hispanic students that are very expressive, and in their responses, what we see is fear of, school shootings. And so a 7th grade student who identifies as white says, it sounds like they keep us safe and they are community oriented. They won't do any harm to the kids. And then there is an 8th grader identifying as an Hispanic student says, I said yes because an officer can prevent school shooter, a criminal breaking into the school, and can keep all students and teachers safe. Another 8th grader student who identifies Black says, I say yes because I think they can keep the school safe because sometimes school isn't that safe and they can ensure our safety. This doesn't mean I have feared police, but I trust our SROs. And, as we read all these comments and the additional ones similar to this, we do see students who are responding positively because they want safety in schools. And for as much as we believe our schools are safe, there are events that do happen, and students, for some reason, have developed a confidence that school resource officers like Officer JP and Officer Farah do a great job at keeping us safe. So it is also important that we share with you guys tonight that there are several districts who have taken this, the SRO contract and looked at the relationship that they have with their police department. And so on my left, these are name of school districts that have kept contract or relationship with the police department. And then on my right side, we have an example of three school districts that have ended the relationship with their police department, and they're utilizing a different approach called the student safety coaches, where they bring in other trained people who are not necessarily police officers. On the left side, I have Roseville Public School. Roseville is continuing its relationship with the police department, but they come into the school wearing T-shirts and khakis, and the principals are well aware of the situation when the SROs have to engage with the students. So with this, I also want to say that in our school district, Superintendent Stanvik, working with Dr. John Fry, have been able to increase the number of social workers to be able to respond to the social emotional needs of our students. And that is a positive given the pandemic that we're traversing. And at this point, I am going to pass on to Director Anakin to continue with the contract.
Thank you, Chair Severson, members of the board, and Superintendent Stenvik. You're gonna have to advance the slides for me, Bondo. So the SRO contract, I know that this was a discussion previously a little bit. We gave you some of the information on this, so we're just going to go into it a little bit more. We've been working over the last couple of weeks, fine-tuning some of the language in the contract, just to not really changing the contract, just making it clearer in some areas what the SRO's role is in the school. The contract kind of referred to some things that aren't necessarily common terms anymore. For example, used to be a school liaison officer, or an SLO, and we obviously refer to them as SROs, or school resource officers. So it was just a lot of sense. It was tweaking language, but the mission of our SROs, or the SRO program, is to create a positive relationship between youth and the police to identify, correct, and prevent delinquent behaviors and activities. Primary responsibilities within this program is law enforcement, education, and school resources. So there's a lot of objectives to this. We have 5. Previous contract had 4. We've added an additional one. Objective 1, to provide a form, process, or a rationale to enhance school safety, reduce the need for police monitor, and help prevent gang activity and handle incidents that may occur. So of course we have measures or indicators, as we call them, number of complaints, assaults in the school, and how that SRO program is seen through the school. Obviously, we've just done some survey data on that. Objective 2, provide services to the school district, indicators. We have knowledgeable officers and responsive officers within the schools. Again, they're in this objective. They're monitoring gang activity. The goal is to reduce the number of calls, and then we have objective number 3 is completing investigations assigned and generated in the field. Of course, things happen. So it's just making sure that those proper processes are happening. So kind of a checks and balance. And objective 4, improvement and continual updated liaison program. So an annual evaluation, and along with that annual evaluation, we'll talk about this a little bit later too, is quarterly check-ins. And then objective number 5, which is new to this contract, provide cultural relevant services in the schools, and the indicator participate in annual cultural competency and equity training offered by the district, including on-site and off-site training. Now, our officers do go through training within the police force, but they haven't been participating in our training in the past. So this is something new, so they can see it from our lens. So we think that that's an important add. Other major areas of accountability, they attend school staff meetings, build and maintain rapport between youth and school, and the police by day-to-day contact as a resource person. They become involved in the school, inside and outside, with youth activities, facilitate education programs for the students, assist in and advise in security matters, and of course, investigate crimes. So of course, I mentioned this before, accountability, that one indicator, annual evaluation. We do have quarterly meetings to review data, implementation progress. And they can be a range of meetings. I know Superintendent Sinvik meets with the chief of police, and at times I meet with Captain Markham. So those are those quarterly check-ins to review and see how the program's going, and then the overall, of course, annual evaluation. So something different for this contract, given COVID. I think I mentioned to the board last time that given COVID, given the fact that we've been in modified hybrid, that this fall we were working with the police on not being billed for services because we didn't have them in this fall. And so that is processing, and we're looking at the contract moving forward and how do we deal with the unknowns of COVID-19 and what learning model we're in. So this language will be added to our current contract. The above terms assume a normal in-person learning model at the middle school and high school. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, the school district may switch to a modified hybrid or distance learning model, resulting in fewer or no students in the middle school and or high school. In the event the school board changes either school to a modified hybrid or distance learning, no liaison officer will be needed in the schools, and the district will not incur any cost under this agreement relating to the schools operating under those models. From the date the learning model is changed at such time the district moves to either an in-person or full hybrid learning model in that school. While the school is operating under an in-person or full hybrid learning model, liaison officers will be utilized, and the district is obligated to pay the full cost of the liaison services as contemplated by this agreement. So we've worked with our legal counsel on this contract and this ad just to clearly identify that, given COVID-19, and if we are in modified or distance learning, that we will not be billed for our spring or for the time that the liaison officers are not in the schools. So with that, our final recommendations, annually introduce one of the things that we're going to continue to make sure is done and done well is annually introduce our SROs to students and explain their roles in the schools. I think, as you could kind of see from the survey data, there's some students that may not necessarily are unsure of the SRO role in the schools. And we want to continue to collaborate with the Columbia Heights Police Department and continue to build on the relationship that we already have, and allow the department to build on relationships with students at the various functions that we have, and maintain the SRO's presence in Columbia Heights Public Schools as specified in the contract. It's been a great longstanding relationship, and we want to continue to grow that relationship. And I think that's where we open it up to any questions.
All right, questions or comments for discussion? I know we had discussion about this at our work session last week, but people want to chime in. Molly.
Yeah, I know I spoke a lot last week about this, and just a couple of things to consider. First of all, I appreciate the kids that, or the students that said that they were unsure. I think that just acknowledges how challenging this is. It's a complex situation and a difficult decision to make. And so I really actually appreciate seeing that unsure, because it's really reflective of kind of how all of us feel. It's like, what is the best response, right? And I don't want to discount, the concerns that a lot of people have about having the SROs in the schools, but I think it's just important to remember that a lot of the situations where the SROs are going to interact with our youth, police would typically be responding if that's the emergency call put out. And so, in my opinion, I still stand by what I spoke about last time when we talked about this, and that relationship is probably better to have that person there that's familiar versus two officers the students have never seen before, perhaps, or something like that. I think that is a huge factor in de-escalation. And so I just continue to look at that. I appreciate what you guys put out as far as the survey. That's really helpful. And I think it just, it reflects kind of similar numbers and everything, and that there is a pocket of our population, and we need to acknowledge that. But I really feel pretty strongly about our situation being different than some of the cities that have been on the news. I think Columbia Heights Police Department is a little bit unique in terms of their community engagement and their relationships that they have with the students. The two things that I still, want to make sure that we keep talking about and look at is whether or not they have to be in uniforms, if that makes a difference to some of the kids, if it, changes anything. And I understand we talked a lot about how the police officers are employees of the police department, so we don't have all of that ability to control those things, but just having those conversations, I'm wondering if they're open to that. And then also, it was good for me to hear last time we spoke about this, that we do have a little bit of oversight in terms of if we had an SRO that really things were not going well. Director Henneken spoke about one time when one was removed from that role. And so just that we are able to continue to do that if it ever arose to that. So I appreciate the survey. I know that we threw that at you, and you guys, I think, got it out just a few days later. So I really, really appreciate that.
More comments or questions? John.
Brian, have you had conversations about the uniforms and stuff with either Markham or the chief?
I haven't directly with the chief, no. Yes, I have with Captain Markham, and I wouldn't say that I'm assuming there's going to be continued conversations around this. I think our initial conversations are really around I guess the history of because people can remember a time when this is going back quite a long ways, early 2000s, where a school resource officer was not in uniform, and then they switched over where all officers were in uniforms, and again, Molly mentioned this, that they are police officers, and they are hired by the Columbia Heights Police Department, and they do follow their uniform guidance, so what uniform they wear. And so, but I think that there'll be continued conversation about that.
Okay, I was going to talk about the fact that, and as recently as JP at the high school, he's been in polos and khakis. It's not always, the full dress uniform and things like that. So my hope and my belief is that the police department is more interested in continuing to build these relationships and with the kids, than having somebody in a full dress uniform. I guess I don't know that for a fact, but I would be surprised if they weren't supportive to some flexibility with that. So.
More questions?
I just have a comment.
Okay, Laura, then Lorian.
Okay. I really appreciate the additional survey. Um, it was very difficult to look at making a decision with such a small sample size. So it's really good to see the very the amount of we got a better idea of how our students actually feel. And I think that obviously that's the most important thing of all. So I really appreciate you getting that to us so quickly. And I think I would like to really echo what Molly said about the unsure. That it's something that I would love to find out exactly, what exactly they're unsure about. If it's, personally, or if it's what they hear, or, you know, but I'm very glad that they're really taking this topic very, very seriously. So thank you very much. And I'm really hoping that we can continue to build on this relationship.
Lorian?
And thank you. Not to go over it again, but I also want to say thank you to Bondo and the principals, for Superintendent Stenvik, the team, for doing that survey after our meeting last week. I think it really helps to see an additional 616 responses. And I think just overall, to you guys who have done this, I know initially we had put out the call to do these focus groups and not include the principals in that, to try to kind of have somebody from outside the schools get that information. And then, we needed some more feedback. I think, as we kind of move through this direction, I said this last week when we talked about this as well, I think we are truly gifted two amazing SROs, an Officer Fair and Officer JP. And I really think that specifically those two have created some great bonds with our students and have done what this program was designed to do, which was truly to create a positive relationship between students and police officers. And especially with those students who may have, whether it's culturally or, racially or just personally, have not positive relationships with the police officers. I feel like those two have done a nice job of trying to build that. I think, I was looking at the survey results, and I think, Bondo, you had said that 4.9% of the students said no, that they don't, we should not have officers in the school. And I don't want to dismiss those, those students. Our mission statement is to create worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. So looking at 4.9% of 616 is roughly 30 students. And those 30 students have said, no, I don't want this here. And, then we've got another 300 students who say, I don't know. So how do we program and educate? And, like you said, Director Hennekins, providing, the information is who they are and why they're here. And how do we focus on those 330 students who are not a resounding yes, knowing that their voice needs to be heard too.
Other comments or thoughts? Hala.
I'm looking at this data, and I really do appreciate how fast and responsive you were in getting it done and getting the data analyzed. And I'm also, like what Lorian was saying, I'm really aware of the number of students who said no and the ones who said that they're unsure. And just to make a little correction, they didn't, somebody stated, I don't remember who, they didn't say they're unsure of what the role is. They said they're unsure if they want them there. Big difference. And I'm thinking about an education, how we make decisions for kids because they're good for them, even if they don't know it, even if they don't believe that's the right decision for them. So I'm thinking about, even if, you know, a certain number of students want to have SROs, is that good for our students? That's what I'm wrestling with right now. I don't have the answer, but I'm just putting it out there. It is our job to do what we believe is right and to vote our conscience. And when we work with students in education, we make decisions that they're not asking for. We don't survey kids on every decision we make. You know, hey, do you want to do tests? Hey, do you want, you know, like, we have to make decisions for them. So right now I'm just putting that out there for discussion.
I think that's a fair point. And it's not one that hasn't crossed my mind, as we make a lot of decisions, right? We also answer to constituents and to taxpayers, and we, in all of those situations, have to vote our conscience and think about what's in the best interest of the kids in the schools, right? What's going to facilitate an environment where they are learning, they feel safe, and they can live out those core values that I read at the beginning of this meeting that we all need, and where, you know, everyone belongs, right? And so it's something that I've been thinking about too, Hala. Appreciate it, like everyone else said, the hard work that's gone into this survey. Appreciate the kids who took the time to answer the survey. I know the kids probably do not want anything more to do on their computers than they're doing right now, but they took it to essentially help us, and so we appreciate that. Probably not a ton of students, middle school and high school students out there watching this hour and a half long board meeting, but thank you. And again, to Director Nyambwe and Superintendent Stenvik and everyone else, appreciate that. Any other comments? I want to remind people that we're not voting on this week. If you're watching online, we'll be voting on this at our December 15th meeting. Is that when it will come up again? So if you have thoughts or concerns, again, you can email board members individually or as a group. More discussion, though. I don't want to shut off the discussion if people still have questions or thoughts. All right, we will see you back with this information, and we'll see this on the agenda on the 15th of December. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the building vision card for Columbia Academy with Executive Director Nyambwe and Principal Burkus, everybody's favorite emailer.
If you could give me 1 second to share my screen, and then we'll get started again. I think I'm unmuted. Good evening, Chair Siverson, member of the board, and Superintendent Stenvik. I am here tonight with Principal Burkus to present to you the Columbia Academy building vision card. The mission of our school district is creating worlds of opportunities for each and every learner. All belong and all succeed. The presentation tonight will encompass all the 6 core values from our school district. And this is information, it's an information update and no governance questions. This is part of our strategic roadmap. Each school district, each school has a building vision card that exemplify the great work that is being done at the building. And Principal Burkus is here tonight to share some of the highlights from last school year, 2019-2020.
Thank you. Chair Severson, Superintendent Kelly, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to talk to you about Columbia Academy. We have lots of different, as you know from these reports, lots of different lines. I'll try to highlight some of the ones that I think we have maybe a little bit more to say, but I do want to highlight on this first slide a couple of things. First of all, the first one is talking about professional development in the area of health and wellness. And I do think that over this last year and a half, really, last school year and now this half of this school year, that our Office of Teaching and Learning has been very responsive to where we're at and what we're experiencing. And so very appreciative of their work, their mindfulness that we have a lot of stressed out staff and we need professional development in health and wellness. Just as in the last line of this slide, the professional development that they have offered to us in a vital area for our students, which is trauma. And an area that I learned a great deal last year of in the sessions that we had. It was a real eye-opener for, I think, myself and many of our staff of what impact trauma has on the behavior that we see in our school. So I want to make note of those two here and thank them for that, that ongoing great work that they're doing with that. As far as absences go, I think we have student absences and teacher absences in A12 and A13, but a very interesting thing with the teacher absences was the incredible reduction that we had. And over this past year, we almost cut it in half from the year before. Why is that? I think a big part of that was the last part of the year when we are on distance learning. Parents of kids, when the kids were sick, were still able to teach. I think teachers were healthier. They were home instead of catching things at school. So a variety of reasons perhaps, but a big reduction. We still worked hard to keep our kids though coming, and sort of the opposite is what we saw with student attendance. With distance learning, it is a challenge. And so we are experiencing that again this year too, getting kids to come, to show up, whether it's in person or hybrid or distance learning, that message to them that they're all school and they need to be there. So as far as the behavior as well in the school, we did see again a reduction in both our in-school and out-of-school suspensions, a greater one in out-of-school suspensions. Distance learning really cuts that down to basically nothing. There aren't any suspensions. We can deal with misbehavior in other ways. We have to. In-school suspension did not drop as much last year, in part because we were utilizing it more as when we were in school as a way to decrease the out-of-school suspension, which oftentimes did not keep kids engaged in school while in-school suspension would. As you know, again, one of the biggest changes probably that will come out of distance learning is our relationship with technology as educators, and Schoology, which was not used by every teacher in our building, now is. And it will never, I'm sure, be the case that we don't have all teachers using that platform or another that will be sort of the backbone of the curriculum that they use. So Schoology has really been our platform since the pandemic started in March last year, and it's only grown to this day. Khan Academy, on the other hand, which is also an online program, has gone down in its use. And I think that's in part because things shift. And what teachers are utilizing now through Schoology and through some of the other platforms or some of the other online teaching tools we have for math has changed that. So Khan Academy, I don't think it's going to ever go away, but we do have other tools that we're using now that has decreased that. especially in light of the fact that the spring, we tie it to our Psat scores and the use of that, and all of that was disrupted quite a bit last year, and as we anticipate our spring now possibly again. So this talks a little bit more about Psat, and in that first one, we had about a quarter of our students, 25%, that were at that college readiness that we want them to be. So obviously a big area that we have to continue to grow, and that's in all of the different categories that they use. With that, we do send out our information. We did again last year to make sure that they are all, parents know what their kids' scores are and what that means. With all this though, I think one of the big commitments we have at that last line is that we will be held accountable for growth, and that our kids, no matter where they come in, need to be making solid academic growth. And we know many of our students struggle with grade level standards or MCAs, but that doesn't mean that they can't make strong growth. So in this past year, we had 61% of our students hit typical or aggressive growth on the FAST, and we had 54 in math and 54% of them in reading. So those are much more solid numbers for us than some of the standardized achievement test scores that we have. Obviously, our hope is that if we keep that up, we'll get there with the other tests as well. For communication, our students are in advisory every day. Our teachers meet with small groups of kids. The main task is to go over how they are doing. What are their grades? What are their missing assignments? What are their goals? How are they going to get there? With that, we do send home then every Friday the same information that we give those students. So parents have the option of signing up for Parent View, but we don't really have any way to know if they're going to pop in there. So we also want to push out that information. We do so on a weekly basis. On every Friday afternoon, we remind teachers that that's an expectation and that parents know that it'll be there. And then, of course, we have our weekly updates through email and phone calls. We didn't get all of our events in last year. Some of the ones that some of our biggest ones, like our academic night, most of our Rise Up breakfasts for the spring, our end of the year ceremony for 8th graders, we missed all those. And I missed that, and I miss it greatly again this year, that chance to celebrate together. We also missed, of course, the musical, and we delayed it till after the holidays, and then we delayed it again, and then we finally had to cancel that too. But parents, we continue to work with our parents, and they are responsive, and right now we're working on our next set of, this really never ends, different requests we have to return forms. So with that, the work that we're doing in school is really a big commitment of ours is to be consistent and to be able to guarantee parents and kids that no matter who your teacher is, there's going to be high expectations. We're going to teach you what we see as our most important standards, our power standards. With that, we have implemented a common prep time for almost all of our teachers in the building so that they can meet, and they do on a weekly basis. They use that time to make sure that they are teaching the grade level curriculum, that we are in agreement of what we're going to teach and how we're going to assess it. This is ongoing work that, again, Teaching and Learning is supporting us in. And I see it as probably one of the most exciting things that started last year and is continuing to grow this year. Finally, I think Denise has been happy with us. We've been slightly under budget the last couple of years, so we hope to always meet that final line there of being on budget. So with that, our goal was, and we didn't have the MCAs, but our goal was a 5% increase in math. So we were doing many things to do that. We have math every day, and then every other day's schedule, we have it every day. We continue to do that. We have intervention classes in 6th and 7th, where they got even an additional scoop. And then our advisory had our math teachers took on students that they have for math that were struggling, and they were able to see them one more time, give them one more bit of support. We have co-taught special ed cluster classrooms. We have an online program that's for foundational skills in math to build fluency that we used with all grades. We used fast math to look at how we're doing. And then we have multiple computer-assisted learning programs. For reading, we do have an expectation that we're all teachers of literacy. It's not just for our English teachers, but everyone's a reading teacher when you teach at a middle school. We had 2 literacy coaches last year. That was a 2-year grant, so they're not there. We miss them greatly. They were a great influence on our PLCs and our teachers. Again, we're using our FAST assessments to see how we're doing in terms of growth, and for intervention. We do have intervention classes, which again meet every day in all 3 grades. If they're low in reading, they will be placed in one of those. And finally, we did pilot an intervention program, one of the first middle schools to do so with the University of Minnesota. Unfortunately, it was not online and still isn't online, so we had to stop, and then we have not been able to take that back up again. Finally, we had a behavior goal that we would decrease our referrals out of classroom by 15%. Again, through lots of different things. I think I would point out the biggest thing, though, is that we have consistent expectations and that we have strong relationships. And we continue to see that as key, whether we're here at school or not, if we're doing it virtually. That combination is really the foundation for everything else. So we did, obviously, it was easier to meet that goal with our students not being in class the last quarter. So just some pictures of what life was like before masks and social distancing. We wouldn't get by with that today, obviously. So, and we miss that. Those are the kinds of things that are hard to not have. It's a big empty building, and you hear your shoes squeaking down the hallway. It echoes from wall to wall. So, but that's where we're at, and we look forward to all of those amazing kids are out there, and we look forward to the day we'll all be back. So I'm open to your questions.
Questions, board members? Molly, I see you there.
I want to keep going first at all this. I'm trying to be quiet, but I also don't want the opportunity to go away. I don't so much have a question, just want to comment on the fact that I really appreciate all of the interventions you had put into place. And I'm just so disappointed that with COVID, we really won't know how that would have impacted our kids if they were in the building. And so I would just encourage you to, no matter what those numbers look like, to continue to keep those in place, especially the daily math and reading. Like I said, I know it's happening over distance learning, and I appreciate that, but I also know that these numbers and the growth, I don't know what to expect, and I don't think anyone can really say that. The other thing I've always appreciated about you, Mr. Burkus, is just that you always look at the fact that there is room for growth. and that you're always looking for those different opportunities like the U of M. So thank you for that. And as always, thank you from all of the parents out here for your continued communication efforts too.
Thank you.
Others? All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
we'll see you
you.
again in the future.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, got to get back to my agenda. And it says we will welcome Director Hennekins, who will tell us about roof bids.
Exciting
you say it
stuff.
exciting enough. Yeah, if you say it exciting enough, people start to believe you.
All right, Chair Severson, members of the board, Superintendent Stenvik. This evening, I just want to do a brief presentation to kind of go over our roof bids, so what we're doing. Mission, of course, creating worlds of opportunity for each and every learner. All belong, all succeed. And our core values focus in this presentation of excellence, collaboration, and integrity. This is just an information item tonight with no board governance, but it will be brought to the December 15th regular school board meeting as an action item for approval. So this is an outline of the high school. So the horseshoe would be running through here. Here's our family center. So the sections of roof that we're talking about tonight are section A here in red and section B1, B2, and B3. So what this looks like in more of an aerial view here, we have section A here. And in looking at this project, I just wanted to kind of let everybody know the impact of this roof project for this summer. We've already had meetings with Summer Academy and talking about summer programming and what we hopefully will be able to have, but we need to plan for it because this will definitely have some impacts to accessibility with construction. So we have section A here, and so we have the side of the building here will be construction area. And then we have the section B1, 2, and 3 here. So we'll have some construction job site storage in the back here. And then the site key on the right-hand side here is this on-site fencing overhead protection required. And so obviously everybody can kind of see that that's the front entrance. So at some point this coming summer during this project, we'll have to close down the front entrance to the high school to allow just for that safety. So that'll be closed down. We'll do our best to minimize that. So obviously timing is key. We have a lot of roof area to work on, so we'll schedule it as well as we can, but I just wanted to make everybody aware of that, where those sections are and where that work is going to be done. So we did have our bid opening, and the lowest responsible bidder is Peterson Brothers Roofing. And again, there's our sections of roof with a base bid of $717,500. Just to kind of go over the timeline of what we anticipate here is, again, you approved bid authorization on October 27th. November 17th, we opened the bids. This evening, we're making that recommendation for the information item. And then December 15th would be an action item. And then June 2021 would be the pending school board approval. The project would begin, and August 2021, again, pending school board approval, the project would be complete. And before I ask for any questions, I did want to show, I might have to zoom this in, but so we're working with the Garland Group again on our on this roof. That's the company that we worked with to do our study, a roof study, to determine where we're at with all of our roofs district-wide. And These are the next sections of roof. Again, Peterson Brothers, and this was just kind of an overall bid tabulation. So again, Peterson Brother Roofing at the low bid at $717,500. So any questions?
Looking for hands. Lorian.
Yeah, probably would anticipate this question, but I know that this is probably in our capital plan, long-term facilities maintenance, and how does that align with what we've got budgeted for this project?
Perfect. Yes, this is long-term facility maintenance, and it is higher than what we anticipated it to be. These sections of roof have a lot of rooftop units on them, and that complicates things for us. So it was higher price per square foot than we anticipated. And we are going to leverage the fact that this project will go over 2 fiscal years. So we do have the budget for it because it does go over 2 fiscal years. And and again, yes, it's long-term facility maintenance dollars.
And we'll be able to absorb that overage.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
All right, great questions. Other question? All right, thank you, Director Hennikins. We'll see you back on the 15th of December.
Thank you.
All right, and that leads it to me. The school board policy, the subcommittee on policy met, well, a few weeks back now, right? And we talked about school board policy 413, harassments and violence, the form 419, tobacco-free environment, 516, student medication, 809, which is a new policy, COVID-19 face covering policy. Also made some adjustments to 903, a visitor to the school district buildings and sites. And these will appear on a future agenda. I'm assuming the 17th. I did not quite look ahead that far. Oh, probably not. There'll be a second reading, correct?
There'll be an action item on the 15th.
Action item on the 15th. All right, great. So Superintendent Stenvik, have we heard from anyone on these policies yet?
Chair Severson, we have not had any correspondence or inquiries.
Okay. Any questions or comments on these items? Lorian.
Just clarification, and of course I'm going back and forth between my agenda, and this is the first reading. So now these are available time for the public.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So the public can take a look at those now on our website.
Yep. Okay, we will move on. We'll move on to the resolution to combine precincts for any special election, and we'll invite the ever amazing Don Hoyam.
Well, thank you, Chair Severson, members of the board, Superintendent Stenvik. I'm here before you today to speak about the yearly resolution to combine polling places in case of a special election. This is a cost savings event that was done annually. We will reduce our election polling places from 13 down to 2, pretty much splitting up the district up Central Avenue. So if you're on the east side, you vote at Highland. If you're on the west side, you vote at Valley View. Of course, this would only be used in a special election, which we have not had any for the last few years.
All right, questions? All right, Don, thank you so much. We will see you back here on the 15th.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our action items. I'd like to welcome Assistant Principal Matt Miller to talk about the Minnesota State High School League Foundation form.
All right. Hi, good evening. Madam Chair Severson, members of the board. Superintendent Stenvik. Tonight I'm going to speak briefly about the Minnesota State High School League Foundation grant. Our mission here at Columbia Heights Public Schools is creating worlds of opportunity for every learner, and with an emphasis on all belong and all succeed. Our core values are listed. I'm going to talk briefly on this resolution, but it's going to focus on excellence, collaboration, and integrity. And what the activities department is asking you all, the school board, is permission for my department to apply for a grant. And the grant is Minnesota State High School League Foundation. It is separate from the Minnesota State High School League. They are a partner. But what data they ask for is our free and reduced numbers, and they ask for the high school numbers. So the total student population, and then the total student participants and activities, and they want that data from last school year. So this is a governance action item, and I am asking for a resolution on this item.
All right, questions? And this again is something we've talked about at meetings before. Matt, did you share this with us at our last work session? I think that's when we first heard about this.
Yes, I did.
All right.
So
great.
we've done this in years prior. It's a small grant, but every dollar counts for our kids.
Yeah, great.
I would make a
I'm gonna
motion to move
read
that
it.
forward if you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to read the resolution and then I'll ask for a
Okay.
motion to move that forward. Thanks. I'm just going to zoom in. It's so difficult. All right, there it is. Resolution approving Columbia Heights Schools resolution of school board supporting Form A application to the State High School League Foundation. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 13, State of Minnesota as follows. Whereas the Minnesota State High School League, it's harder to say the acronym, MSHSL Foundation was formed to provide support for Minnesota's high school youth participates in athletics and fine arts. Whereas District 13, Columbia Heights Public School Board of Education recognized the value of student participation in extracurricular, and whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation is offering grants and funding to assist school districts in recognizing, promoting, and funding extracurricular participation by high school students in athletic and fine arts program. Therefore, be it resolved that the Columbia Heights Public School Board of Education supports the district's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for a Form A grant to offset student activity fees. Could I get a motion to move this forward, please?
I'll motion that one too.
Thanks, Sean. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Lorian. All right, any discussion on this?
Just appreciate you taking the time to complete this and get any extra dollars we can. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Severson,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Samurai,
Aye.
Larkin,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Lewis, aye.
Motion carries. Great. Thank you so much. All right, we will move on to
Thanks, Matt.
Director.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Matt. Move on to Director Tuckroll, and who's going to talk about approval of new suspended deleted courses for 21-22 school year.
I had the other one first. Do you want me to do World's Best Workforce first or courses?
Did I skip one? Oh, you're
Yes,
right.
you did.
I skipped it. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I must have clicked one too many there. There we go. We're moving on to Director Tuckroll, the board to approve the World's Best Workforce annual report. Thank you.
It is close to my bedtime, so I could have skipped it too. So
Well, it's been
sorry
a 2-hour meeting, so, you know.
All right, good evening, Chair Severson, members of the board, Superintendent Stenvik. I'm here tonight seeking approval of our 2019-2020 World's Best Workforce Annual Report. I presented at the last meeting how COVID-19 pandemic has affected our World's Best Workforce goals. We unfortunately don't have the assessments needed to report out on our goals. So I've checked in with the Department of Education, and they have allowed us and said we can go ahead and post our annual report online, where in past years we have sent it out to families. So this year we are going to post it online as we don't have results of our goals, but we are working collaboratively with the communications department to ensure that we do send out communication to our community about all the things happening in the district. But since we don't have a report out on the goals, that won't be part of that. So I'm here tonight seeking approval for our 2019-2020 annual World's Best Workforce annual report, which will be posted online.
All right, thanks. I'm looking for a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Lorian, second.
Second.
Give it to Molly.
Molly got it. Saw the hand. Sorry to Hala and Laura if you're raising your hand. I can't see it. All right. Any discussion on this one? Again, just for people watching, this is something we discussed at our work session last week. So any other questions though?
I just want to mention, I believe it was last week that Member Mueller requested that we just have the link posted in numerous places online so it's easily accessible and viewable by people.
All right. Other questions? All right, we'll move to a roll call vote, please.
Severson.
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
Samurai.
Aye.
Larkin.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Lewis. Aye.
Motion carries. Great, thank you. Now, Director Tuckroll, we can move on to new suspended and deleted courses. Thank you for catching me. There's one per week. I'm just used to it.
Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in a presenter view though, if that matters to you. We can see your upcoming slide, but it's fine.
I'm not
You
sure
don't mind.
why. You don't mind. It bothers me, but
I'm sure it does.
now is it
There
better?
it is.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry about that. All right, good evening, Chair Severson, members of the board, Superintendent Stenbeck. I'm not going to go through all the slides tonight as we did go through them last time, but I did want to highlight some of the courses that we're seeking approval for tonight. So school board will be asked to approve the courses presented for the 2021-2022 school year. In the elementary schools, there are no recommendations to suspend or delete courses, and we're continuing to explore the STEM opportunities at North Park, as was presented in previous presentations to the board. We're currently piloting Project Lead the Way there, so we'll update the board on that as we continue. At Columbia Academy, we're excited to recommend an advanced theater course. We're really trying to support our students who want to continue on the theater after taking the beginning level course. And we're hoping this will help with the alignment at the high school as well. We have an amazing new theater teacher at the high school. So we've been working together with Tara Lawrence and her to continue that alignment between the academy and the high school. At the high school, we're looking to add a Project Lead the Way course. We currently have Project Lead the Way at the middle school in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This would be the first course at the high school, and we're looking to add an engineering course. And Project Lead the Way offers a lot of opportunities to our students, including college credit. So this would be a great alignment with what the academy offers currently. We're also looking to change some titles of our FACS courses, our food consumer science courses, to really align with the standards and provide more opportunities. So we're looking to change our frugal cuisine to foundations of food, and then food for fitness to nutrition and wellness. And we will continue our collaboration with Blooming Heights in both of these courses, as they really have connected well on supporting our students and showing them what we have outside of our building as well. And we're really excited about the Introduction to Education course. This has been a course in the works for a few years looking into it. We know that there's a shortage of teachers, especially teachers that look like our students in the education force. And this has been a course that has been offered at Century College in previous years and currently is not offered there and will not be offered there next year as well. So we're looking to start an intro to education course and connect it with Century College. It would be no cost to our students, but they would earn college credit. And it's really designed to introduce them to the educational system, as well as offer them opportunities to do some internships within our school district. So we're excited for the opportunities this could offer. So asking tonight for approval of these courses for the 2021-2022 school year.
All right, thank you so much for that. I'm looking for a motion to move that one forward.
So moved.
Thanks, Laura. Second?
Second.
Paula, thank you. I didn't even have to see your hands. Any discussion? Thanks, Lorian. Thanks. Thanks for talking, Lorian.
Sure. Hey, just real quick, I mentioned this at the meeting last week as well, and I just appreciate, what we're doing for all of these great new courses, especially the education course. Just to, again, comment on timeline, as I mentioned last week as well, that if we get to the point where we do have to delete courses, I'd like to see this presented at a full board meeting and then, have the time before the action item. But hearing that, at this point, we're not deleting anything, I'm completely fine with the timeline this time around.
Thanks, Lorian. For real that time. Any other comments? All right, move that to, oh, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I couldn't tell whether or not you'd unmuted. You saw me unmute.
I did not see it. I was already
that's
flipping
okay.
around the screen.
I'm never sure if I should just jump in or not.
You should. You should.
Yeah, I know we did have some discussion on this at our work study, and you also mentioned that there were further courses that our students would be available to take as far at Century College with regards to education, that they would also have that opportunity.
Yes, that is correct. They have thank you for bringing that up. Century College has a really nice articulated pathway for students to follow in which they can continue their courses through Century College and then move on to get their license. And during that time, also have opportunities to work in the educational field.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, let's have a roll call vote.
Severson.
Aye.
Mueller.
Aye.
The Samurai.
Aye.
Larkin.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Lewis. Aye.
Motion carries. We'll keep on trucking here. Move on to the high school area separation bids with Director Hennekens.
Thank you, Chair Severson, members of the board, Superintendent Stenvik. This evening is seeking approval for the high school area separation project. We had sealed bids opened on October 27th. We presented the bid tabulations at the previous school board meeting on November 10th. And again, as presented at the previous meetings, seeking approval to move forward with Carl Sanderson recommendations of Construction Results Corporation for the carpentry base bid of $219,690. United States Mechanical for the base bid of $91,300, and Muska Electric for the base bid of $47,265 for the electric scope. Again, just seeking approval. This project is, again, due to our additions of the band room on the high school with the bond referendum projects, and just bringing up the high school, the existing building, to code and creating the appropriate 2-hour firewall separations throughout the building.
All right. Can we get a motion to move this one forward? Molly?
So moved. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second. John, thank you. Discussion. Lorian?
May have missed this. Did you say when you would be looking at doing this project?
Sorry, I did not. It is the summer of 2021, so this next summer.
And then I know that we've been talking about this for a while now since this first came up. Is this in our budget this year, or is this something that we kind of had to know that was coming, but that was aside from that?
Really, this expense is going to come out of our construction project dollars.
Okay.
So it is within the budget.
So it's earmarked for that. Okay, I knew that had
Yes.
come up with that project. Thank you.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, let's vote. Roll call, please.
Pearson,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Samurai,
Aye.
Larkin,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Lewis, aye.
All right, motion carries. And we'll keep going with the board organizational meeting, and I will welcome Don Hoyam once again and Superintendent Stenvik to talk about that.
Members of the boards, I'm back here tonight to talk about the organizational meeting. I'm asking you to approve the first Monday in January as the rules for the meeting coming up on January 5th.
All right. I'll get a motion to carry that one forward, please.
So moved.
So moved.
Lorian, second.
Second.
All right, Molly, thank you. And as mentioned in a prior meeting, we were given the book. It's called The First Monday, I think the first Monday in January or something like that.
Yep.
But we will do it on, our meeting will actually be on a Tuesday, just for clarity's sake.
Yes.
So you have the booklet there, and that's in the past, that's how we've conducted our meeting, but we need to approve it. So any discussion on this one? All right, roll call vote, please.
Severson,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Samurai,
Aye.
Larkin,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Lewis, aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to board topics, and I'd like to kick us off by talking about our closed meeting we had just prior to this meeting. And sorry, I'm jogging between a lot of emails right now, so I'm doing my best. But per state law, I need to recap our closed session we had in order to Superintendent Stenvik for her mid-year review. Dawn thankfully passed on to me some meeting notes about what we need to disclose about our meeting in this now general meeting. So now in an open meeting, we'll present that. So the meeting date was today, November 24th of 2020. The attendees there were the board members, Hollis Samurai, John Larkin, Molly Lewis, Lorian Miller, Laura Palmer, Natty Severson, and Zena Stenvik. And we did review areas of performance in an informal way. Now, Dawn, this is where we walk through those bullet points, correct?
Correct.
Great. We did talk about some language here. We wanted to share with the public that we had a good discussion about the superintendent's goals. Goal 1 is to oversee the implementation of district communication plan year 1, and goal 2 is to provide leadership to engage with diverse groups of students. As we talked through those, we agreed that Superintendent Stenvik is meeting board expectations and progressing toward her goals. We acknowledge that this is a crazy year and that she has shown strength and leadership as we've dealt with COVID and distance learning and communication through the craziness that is 2020. We talked through various areas for further consideration as a board as she moves forward in her next 6 months, 6 months until we do her end of the year evaluation. I think that is what we had talked about discussing. Does that seem like a fair summary? This is my first time, Dawn. Is that what they're looking for? And is that, board members, that's what we agreed upon? And Superintendent Stenvik, did I nail that? All right. Great. Want to make sure I was in range. I tried to jot down the notes of what we said. Any other topics? I do have one more, but mine is very insignificant. Anybody else? Board topics? Mine is just funny. Hala, if you're out there, please appreciate this. I'm sure you've not forgotten about this. We're new board members pretty much together, and I was just learning how to do the board, but it was her very first board meeting, and we did a very first roll call vote on a resolution, and whoever was the board clerk at the time called Hala's name to vote first, and she goes, I don't know what to say, kind of under her breath, and I whispered, it's yay instead of I. So every time, and of course I set her up for disaster on that one. So she says yay, and I think it was John's like, well, we actually say I. And so then, of course I set her up for disaster on that one. And so every time tonight I almost said yay. And you had to call on me first, Molly, because it just gets stage fright. And I don't know, is it yay or is it I?
I still remember it all the time whenever there's a roll call.
Yep. Sorry, Hala. So anyway, that was a funny one. So board memories. All right. Any other board topics?
Oh, it's not a topic, but it's
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, it just over at 916, you in addition to saying I or yay, you also have to say your name. So I'm trying to always be careful, to make sure and do it the way that each board does things different. So it's kind of fun. So
I'm glad I only have one. I'm barely hanging on here with Robert's Rules of Order in our board. So yeah. All right. Well, unless we have more topics, anybody? All right. We will adjourn this meeting at whopping 9:13 p.m. Thanks, everyone.